Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Come and See. Today we're talking about drug use in our youth today. We have 4 guests with us, which is a little bit different from the norm. Can you introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, my name is David.
My name is Clara.
My name is Mary.
So I'm going to get into the subject right away today. You're all in high school, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and Habi, you are a youth servant in the church, is that correct?
Now, yes.
Okay, so let me start by asking you about drug use and your environment. What is going on in your environment at school? Is it something that's common? Do a lot of people do it? Is there a lot of peer pressure to do it? I want to hear from all of you.
Like at church,
Yeah.
it's not that much.
Okay.
In either way, in our regular society, whether it's school or work, or church, drug is still a big no-no everywhere, and most people, aren't really, using it or doing it.
Really, most people in school are not using it or doing?
No, in church.
So I'm not talking about church, let's talk about school.
Well, school's a different story. School, there's several people that have been caught
Okay.
using not like extreme drugs, but something like marijuana, or people have been caught with several things like that at my school. And most people sometimes will come high to class,
Okay.
and there have been cases
Okay.
like that.
Clara, is it something that's all around you, or do most people not do it in your school?
For me personally, I don't talk to those who do drugs because
Okay.
I don't know, it's like negative to me and yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people do it because it's obvious, like they're high or
Okay.
they've taken drugs.
And what about you, Mary? Is it around you? Have you seen it?
Yeah, a lot of people that I talk to either have done it before or still do it, and they've been caught either doing it during school, just like David said, or they do it every morning and they'll like come to school high, and it's just all around. And it's not only marijuana, it's many other drugs as well.
Okay. So, David, you mentioned something that most people that do it and come to school high, they don't do the extreme kinds of drugs. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what's extreme and what's not? I mean, educate me on this.
Well, at school there's a class for health where they basically tell you the risks that you're willing to take when somebody uses drugs and alcohol, and they explain to you like all the extreme varieties. So there's a lot. I don't think that the school is teaching us this so we can go and attempt to use the drugs, but to know the risks and to potentially not use them.
Good save, because I was going to ask how you know what they are and how you don't. Okay, very good. So, Abby,
Yes.
let me ask you this. I'm going to be very blunt. Have you used drugs in the past?
Do you really want me to answer that one?
Yes.
Yes, I have. A lot, actually.
Okay, okay. So, what does the church teach you about using drugs?
From the experiences that I've witnessed, there wasn't much of a lesson about it, because like I said before, it's just all around us. It's not something that's common, that it's acceptable in society. So there wasn't really in my point of view, there wasn't really a need for
Someone to talk to you.
yeah, to someone to, because you already know, like, okay, like you've never seen anyone do drugs. Don't do
Okay.
drugs. They're bad for you. They're very harmful. So I didn't think that there was a need for a lesson or for someone to tell me that this was bad, because
Okay.
I already knew.
Did anyone in church ever tell you not to use drugs?
Well, the church always told me not to use drugs, but the problem, or whatever made me start doing drugs, friends. I met a group of people that I should have not hanged out with, but I did, and that's how I started doing drugs. And the problem in that age with doing drugs, you think it's cool.
Wait, what age?
Teenagers, high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I did it when I was in college. I started when I was in college. But the problem is you think it's cool, okay?
But, so in college, you were old enough to know what's right and what's wrong.
Well, I know it's wrong, but the problem, like I said, you think it's cool. You think you're such a cool person, and because you're doing drugs, and you're always actually proud, or I want to say you're always bragging about it. Like, I'm doing this, and I tried this, and I tried that, and that's the issue about it. I know it's wrong, but I think it's cool, so I will not stop. And what made me stop is actually I got older, I grew up. Now I know it's
We
wrong.
got married. Yes.
I got married. I know it's wrong. I don't think it's cool anymore. I actually look at people that they do smoke and they do other drugs and I always tell them it's not cool. And that's how I know that they're still doing it, because I always ask teenagers, do you still do it? And he goes like, no, I stopped, man. It was very easy. I was like, no, you're still doing it. Why? Because you still think it's cool. You talk about it that it's a cool thing. So that's how I know that you're still doing drugs. Someone who actually does not do drugs anymore, you can tell that this person hates it. They don't like to hang out with people that they're doing it. And that's how you could know that this person is actually not doing drugs.
Okay.
The more they talk about it, the more they always think it's cool, then they're still doing it, because it's what happens in school all the time. And it's usually your friends or the group of people who you hang out with that would tempt you to do drugs.
So I'm going to take your story, I'm going to turn it back to you guys. Now, he was taught that drugs are bad and not to do it. You were taught that drugs are bad and not to do it. Is that correct? Okay, but he was tempted by some of his friends. So tell me, what prevents you from being tempted by your friends, and what keeps you from falling into all the pressure that's around you, all the peer pressure, and actually doing it? I mean, is it easy to not do it?
I don't think for me, it's easy to say no because I've been offered before and I've said no.
Okay.
And I think it's mainly just the fact of like thinking ahead of like how I'd be punished by my parents if I ever got caught, or like in the long-term effect. I like to think like of the future before, and I just say no in that way by thinking like ahead.
Okay, so how were you taught about the long-term effects? Is it someone in church that taught you about this, or is it just all purely from school?
It's usually by school. I don't think I've been talked about it in church. Like, my parents have obviously like said drugs are bad, but not really from church, I don't think.
Abby, now you are a youth servant in the church. You're actually not just a youth servant, you're one of the lead servants in the church. What do you talk to them about? How do you tell them that this is bad, that they shouldn't do it? And taking it a step further, he's my husband, by the way, and we have a young son. How will we teach him not to do it? How will I go to him and say, you shouldn't do this because it's bad, but your father did it before? How do we address that? How do you teach a younger generation that it is bad and they shouldn't do it?
I talked to the kids in my church about, and I call them kids, but they're high school, and about drugs. And I told them the problem with drugs is I tried it, so I had to give them that I'm not just telling you this from some point of view that have no idea what you guys are going through. I tell them I tried it and how long, and I actually told them what type of drugs I tried. I told them everything, but I gave them that experience that we talked about marijuana. Okay, this is what usually they start with, and I told them that it's a gateway drug. When you tried it, you start becoming lazy and you don't want to do anything. Some people take that extra step and they start losing their jobs. And this is how I tell them, you start smoking, then you lose your job and you don't have any more money, so to buy the drug that you want to buy, so what you're going to do, a lot of people, they start selling because they want to make money, and they're making money and that's how they get tempted, and I'm still gonna smoke more, and I'm making money. So you're going into a
cycle.
deeper hole. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you want to sell, and I'm not saying everyone starts selling, but I've seen a lot of people that they start selling because they don't have any money. They lost their jobs. They doing bad in school. So I have to give them these experiences that I've seen with my own eyes.
Okay,
And
so basically
that's
worst case scenario in order to stop them from
to
doing it?
to stop them from doing it, tell them how bad it is, and show them what kind of future this person will have if they start doing it or if they kept on doing it. I think this is the only way, because you have to explain to them the bad effect of doing it. And I know it's now, if you do it now, you'll be cool around your friends, and your friends will love you, and you will have that popularity, yes, but later explain to them that later you will actually destroy your future in so many ways, and give them other good examples that they can see, and explain to them that if you start with smoking marijuana, it's a gateway drug that they will make you, because you get used to that drug, then you want to try something else because that effect is not satisfying anymore. Then you start doing other drugs, and it's just a vicious cycle that you don't get out.
Okay. Do you usually listen to everything your servants or your parents tell you? Like if they told you not to do something, do you always listen to them, or do you try it anyways? Honest. Truth.
Yeah, most of the time. I mean, like, if I know it's the right thing, then yeah, I listen.
Okay.
But, like, if it's something that I don't, like, support, then I wouldn't listen.
Okay, so most people your age don't listen. They like to rebel sometimes. I want to hear your experiences or stories from what you've seen around you of people who have been doing drugs. Is it good? Is it bad? Has it affected their life negatively or positively? And I actually want to know the truth. What's going on?
From personally, at school, I've seen multiple kids, ones that I used to be friends with, that, like Hebi said, have tried the gateway drug of marijuana, and they have experienced this high, and that after a while it doesn't satisfy them enough, so then they have to try more drugs and more drugs and more drugs, and then eventually most of them drop out of school. Then they're like 16, 17, and they haven't even finished their high school. And as we know now, in this day and age, you need to at least have your high school diploma. And I've seen these drugs basically rip these kids' families, their household, their true nature apart, and I don't really see how it's that pleasurable, or it's that
Okay. Or it can be a
satisfying.
positive
I
experience.
don't agree. The problem with drugs is that these kids, they love it and they want to do more and more and more. So the way to get away from this is don't even start. And I remember when I spoke to my father of confession about that, I told him I do this and this and this, and I don't know how to stop. And he told me, and I always tell the kids that, he actually told me the best way to get out of this is start running. And I told him, what do you mean by running? And he goes like, run, run, run. When you're in that temptation, start running, get away. If your friend tells you, he passes a cigarette or whatever you guys call it.
A joint?
Johnny.
Okay. I know this one.
He goes, don't tell him, no, I'm okay, I don't want to try it. No, just run. Turn the other way and run. And because they always tell you you will like it, and that's what makes drugs addictive. You will like it.
Okay.
Of course, I agree with you 100%. But the thing that I was just trying to clarify was that the kids that I saw that used the drugs, definitely did like it, to even to an extent that they wanted to try more and more and more.
Until it had a negative effect on them.
Of course, yeah.
Obviously. Because wouldn't you agree that
Of
I think
course.
the more serious it gets, the worse the effect would be?
Of course, and I see his point, because he's saying from his point of view that he doesn't understand what makes them like it, because he sees how bad it's affecting their life, right?
Okay.
And that's what makes you wonder.
Ladies, any experiences, any stories that you can share with us from what you've seen around you?
I know people who haven't only been like addicted by their friends, but also their parents
Oh.
would like be the ones that would give it to them too. So it's not only like their parents like tell them no.
That would actually offer them drugs? Okay. Um, how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you deal with someone telling you that their parents offered it to them?
Well, the people that I know that did that, I was friends with his sister, and she's the one that told me, but she doesn't live with them anymore, so I don't know that much anymore. But when I did hear that, I think it kind of scared me, so like I just kind of like distanced myself from them, and I didn't really do anything about it.
How are you dealing with peer pressure at school? And not just use drugs, but in general, how are you dealing with it?
I think I could say that I'm pretty good with dealing at it and like saying no, because a lot of people know that when I say no, like I mean no. So I don't think it's as hard for me as it is for other people, but that's just me.
Are both of you just as strong as she is?
I am.
Okay. I mean, I'm glad that you guys are really strong and that you don't follow blindly, but I feel like most teenagers are not like you. They fall into peer pressure and they want to be cool. So what do we say to them? Is there any advice? Is there anything that you can tell them?
Drugs isn't the only answer to like if you want to look cool, like don't do drugs. Like there are other things that you can do. You can like if you have a talent, like you could, I don't know, like singing for example, like you could, you know, or like drawing. Drawing is easier. Like you can like show people your, you know, skills like better than, you know, you could look cool that way, like instead of using drugs.
Okay, so how do we convince our youth today that this is something that's wrong? You're talking to them about the effects that it can have, but nobody really thinks that far ahead. How are you convincing them that you shouldn't go along with what's cool?
Okay, whoever is doing drugs, they know they're doing something wrong. And I can tell because I had friends from church.
Okay.
When I start hanging out with the other group that I met in school, and that's when I started doing drugs, I stopped completely hanging out with the guys from church.
Okay.
Because they are not doing it and I want to do it, so I want to hang out with these kids. So I know that if I stopped hanging out with these kids and I would actually go back to my church friend, I know I would stop doing that. So that's what I want to always tell them. Choose your friend right and hang out with the right group, or be around kids from church that are not doing drugs, because
They're a good influence.
good influence, yes.
Okay. So now my final question to you guys. Why haven't you been as tempted by this cool?
I think it's because I like listen to what I've been told and I don't change my mind off of that, but everybody else like don't listen to that and they listen to their friends who do it, because like my school is a secondary school and 7th graders still do it. So like everybody pretty much does it. I have like 2 to 3 friends who haven't done it or don't still do it. And I think it's mainly just like if you really do listen to like what you've been told and if you really do think about it, or you just listen to it and like don't really take it seriously.
David?
To me, the why we haven't been pressured as much is because we have the cushion and the stability that most kids might not have
Okay.
with their families. Like I have a friend of mine. She just turned 16 a couple days ago, and she was telling me about this one thing that her and her boyfriend were hanging out, and her boyfriend's brother walked in the room, and he was like, "Do you guys want to smoke with me?" And she said no, but her boyfriend said yes.
Okay.
And he basically pressured her into trying it with him, and the usual nothing's gonna happen to you, it's good for you, or all this nonsense. But I think that one of the reasons why me, Clara, or Mary would definitely say no is because we have that foundation that we've built with the church, or we've built with
Okay.
our family, our friends. We have that love, that connection. But some of these other kids that are in our public schools, in our daily lives, or maybe even at work, haven't had that same childhood, haven't had that same um, love or like closeness that we have in
So you
our
have
church.
a circle of support. You mentioned the church, family, good friends. So all that prevents you from just following blindly a trend that's going on.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Clara, do you have anything to add?
I don't know. He's covered it all.
Okay, perfect. Well, here's our episode about drug use today. You've heard from some wonderful youth about why we shouldn't do it, and you've heard from a former bad boy who has done it, but now is reformed, and he's actually teaching our youth today why you shouldn't do it. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you on the next episode of Come and See.